Hello again. I've mentioned several times on this channel that I have a deep and lifelong faith in the Lord. Several people have emailed me recently and urged me to say something more about this, to talk about what evidence I find for the existence of the deity. This is such a broad subject that I fear it would take more than a 5-minute video. Perhaps if I spread it out over a period of time, this might be better, because I'm not at all sure that everybody wants to hear a lot of talk about God. I want to speak today about the utterly weird idea that faith in God somehow means rejecting science. This notion has gathered strength in recent years, especially following the publication in 2007 of a book by Richard Dawkins called The God Delusion. I bought it at the time and I went to a lecture he gave, a book signing in London about this. He gave a speech there, quite a long speech, and it seemed to trigger something in people, what you might call a form of militant atheism. Now, I'm fascinated by cosmology and new discoveries in astronomy, subscribing to various magazines like Scientific American and so on. The idea that anything in the world of science could come into conflict with my faith in the Lord is completely alien to me. If I find any apparent contradiction, then it's plain to me that either my religion is at fault or the science is wrong. In other words, I've taken a wrong turning somewhere. Of course, it's not always clear whether it's the science which is wrong or the religion. Let me give an example in my own lifetime when the science was shown to be wrong and religion proved to be correct. We're not talking about a long time ago now, we're talking about 1950s and 1960s. When I was a boy, the scientific view of the universe was that it had always existed, eternal and unchanging. It was simply a given. That was the scientific view, the paradigm. Almost all religions, on the other hand, though, believed that the universe was created, that it came into being at a certain time. In other words, at one point there was no universe, and then it sprang into being. For scientists, this was a completely mad idea. How could the universe have had a beginning? It was simply there, it had always been there. When we read in the Bible that in the beginning there was nothing at all, and then God said, "Let there be light," and brought the universe into existence, this was seen by scientists as a fairy tale or myth. It's similar to the sort of stories that you find in Islam and Hinduism and other religions too. In other words, there appeared to be a sharp contradiction between religion and science on this point. Then something very strange happened. I'm guessing that few viewers have heard of a scientist called Georges Lemaitre, who was a brilliant Belgian. He was a fantastic mathematician and cosmologist and also a very good astronomer. In the 1920s, he showed that Einstein's theory of relativity implied that the universe was expanding and had started at a definite time. Einstein disagreed with him, as did most astronomers. In the thumbnail to this video, we can see Lemaitre with Einstein in the 1930s. He's the one wearing a dog collar, because of course Georges Lemaitre was not only a revolutionary scientist and astronomer, he also happens to be a Catholic priest. He created what we now know as the Big Bang Theory. Most scientists rejected it, despite the fact that Lemaitre's mathematical proofs were impeccable. The Catholic Church, though, accepted the Big Bang Theory in the late 1940s, long before most astronomers did. Of course, eventually, evidence showed that Lemaitre was absolutely correct about the matter, and orthodox science was altogether wrong. And so orthodox science had to play catch-up, agree that the Catholic Church had got it right, and that they'd been completely wrong. This is an example of religion and science clashing, and it being obvious at the time that both could not possibly be correct. As it happened in this case, religion was right and science wrong. Sometimes, though, it's the other way round. Some religious people, Muslims, Jews and Christians, think that the earth has only been around for 6,000 years or so, while science says that the earth has been around for thousands of millions of years. In this case, I think that the science is right and the religion wrong, and I think that both for scientific reasons and also theological ones, but I'll go into that on another occasion. The point I'm driving at is that it is not a case of choosing between faith in God and the evidence of science. There can be no contradiction whatever between these two things. Both science and religion must coincide, and when they do not, then one or the other is wrong, or someone's got muddled up somewhere. I thought that I would start with this idea to save people the trouble of asking me to read books by Richard Dawkins and so on, or telling me I should be scientific. I believe implicitly in the scientific method, and I believe that by studying the world and finding out about the universe, we are using the power of reason which the Lord gave us. When Georges Lemaitre was looking through his telescope and working out the mathematical basis for the idea of the Big Bang, he was doing God's work just as much as he was when he celebrated communion. Science and religion are two sides of the same coin. That's probably enough about God for now, and it lays the ground for a video I shall make in the next week or so about the foundations of my own faith, which is essentially natural theology and based purely upon scientific observation of the universe. For those not interested in religion, this must have been a little dull, and I assure such viewers that normal service will be resumed tomorrow. In the description to this video I give a link to the Wikipedia page about Lemaitre.